as earth cracks open and engulfs their settlements in front of their own bemused eyes. I see shrines of our deities shake, the Lord's own body cracked into lifeless boulders. His mace, his scepter, his lotus, his conch shell, his brass bowls of nectar, his splintered quiver full of blunt arrows. I see my world shaking.
So we are now live.
All right.
I've stopped sharing. Good morning, Yusuf sir.
Good morning.
Now we are live on Facebook, DC Nepal. Good morning to everyone. This is Narayan Batrai. It's June 28th, morning in California, and in Nepal it's evening, I guess, evening. And I'm with the great Himalayan poet Yuyutsu Sharma in our cross-border intellectual dialogue. And it's a conversation with poet Yuyutsu regarding poetry and how he has gotten into the fame of the world-renowned Himalayan poet. I'm so pleased to have Yuyutsu Sharma in this cross-border intellectual dialogue today. I humbly welcome you. Let me share the link for our friends in Facebook. Just a second before we really start our conversation. And as I share the link, would you mind sharing one of your recently written poetry to our listener viewers, sir?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I would, you want me to read Mules, like my signature
Yeah,
poem?
of course. Yeah, that's the signature poem for sure.
All right. So let's begin with that because that's the poem I always read as a way of introduction to our world. This is about the Sherpa climbers and the mules who carry the load into the Himalayas.
Right.
And the poem is called Mules.
Please go
On the
ahead.
great Tibetan salt route, they meet me again, old forsaken friends. On their faces, fatigue of a drunken sleep, their lives worn out, their legs twisted, shaking from carrying illustrious flags of bleeding ascents. Age-long belts clinging to them like festering wounds, beating notes of a slavery that modernism brings, cartons of iceberg, mineral water bottles, solar heaters, Chinese tiles, tin cans, sacks of rice, and iodized salt from the plains of Nepal Tarai. Butterflies of the terrace fields know their names, singing brooks, tempests of their breathless climbs. Traffic alert and time tested, they climb, carrying dreams of past peacocks, pamphlets of a secret religious war, filth of an ecologist trial seaman, and tar kitchen for a cocktail party at the base camp. Defunct development agendas of guilty donors. The West's weird visions lusting for an instant purge. Stone steps of the mountains embossed on their drugged brains like lines of aborted love scratched on the stocky rocks of the water spouts. Starry skies of the dozing valleys know the ache of their secret sweat. Sunny days along the crystal rivers taste of their bleeding eyes. And the greatest fiction of their struggling lives lost like real mules, clattering their hooves on the flagstones, encircling the cruel grandeur of bloodthirsty mule paths around the glaciers of Annapurnas.
Great.
So
Thank you so
this
much.
is from Annapurna Poems. This has gone several editions, and now we are getting a kind of anniversary edition. 25-year. This book has kind of brought me to the world, and I have traveled all over with, especially with Annapurna Poems, that became my successful book. I'm delighted to be here, Mr. Bhatrai. and to speak of my craft and my art and my world. Thank you very much for inviting me to this platform.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure, and it's a pleasure for. It's a great pride for us all Nepali people, especially uh, literary enthusiasts, that to have you as recognized as a world-renowned Himalayan poet, and then the way you express in mules, the contrast that has been created, like over time, it looks modernizes, and I mean, I feel so moved by when I read the poem. You have contributed this poem in one of our poetry collection that we worked a couple years ago, Kadya,
Oh,
representing
yes,
Nepali
yes,
poetry. Yeah, you remember
yes.
it?
I love
Yeah,
this anthology. Yes, see, done
exactly.
by one of my friends and disciples, and some of the people I used to hang out in early years of my struggle as a poet.
Right,
And I'm delighted to be in this beautiful
right.
anthology.
And then you have contributed that mule on this poem collection too. And
Right.
by coincidence, that happens to be one of the signature poetry for like in your poetic journey. So it's very, we feel so humbled for. Anyway,
I'm
so
duly honored as
yeah,
well.
I have already shared the link in Facebook. I guess you can also share the link in your Facebook page.
Okay,
And yeah, and then we can start the conversation. Let me go through your introduction, and then we will
please.
be conversing. So when I read your introduction, please share the link on your Facebook page, so everybody will
Mhm.
be uh,
Able to join us here.
yeah,
Okay,
let us live. Introduction to Yuyutsu Sharma, recipient of fellowships and grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, Ireland Literature Exchange, Turbar Foundation, Slovenia, the Institute for the Translation of Hebrew Literature, and the Foundation for the Production and Translation of Dutch Literature. Yuyutsu Sharma is a world-renowned Himalayan poet and translator. Born in Punjab, India, Sharma moved to Nepal at early age, immersing himself in its rich cultural tapestry. He pursued higher education at the University of Rajasthan and Tribhuvan University. During his time in Rajasthan, a pivotal encounter with American poet David Ray introduced him to the world of literature. Literary luminaries like William Carlos Williams and Allen Ginsberg profoundly influencing his poetry. Sharma's work bridges cultures and geographies, reflecting his deep connection to the mountains and the diverse experience of his travels. His works often intertwine personal narratives with broader sociocultural themes, capturing the essence of places and events with vivid imagery and emotional depth. A prolific writer, Sharma has published numerous poetry collections, including The Alchemy of Nine Smiles, Nine Long Poems, 2024, The Lost Horoscope, New Poems, 2023, The Second Buddha Walk, 2018, A Blizzard in My Bones, New Poems, 2016, Quaking Cantos, Nepal Earthquake Poems, 2016, Space Cake, Armstrong and Amsterdam, and other poems from Europe and America. Sharma has significantly contributed to the literary translation, rendering works from Hindi, Nepali, and other languages into English, thereby amplifying South Asian voices to the global stage. Currently, Poet Sharma edits Pratik, a quarterly magazine of contemporary writing. Sharma's poetic endeavors have taken him across continents where he conducts readings and workshops, sharing his insights and experiences. He has served as visiting poet at Columbia University and participated in international festivals, including Abad Writers and Readers Festival, embracing a life that oscillates between serenity of Himalayas and vibrancy of global cities. Sharma finds inspiration in the interplay of nature and human experience. This is a short introduction of poet Sharma. We will be going into details. I have categorized our discussion into 4 sections. First, we will be discussing about his growth as a poet, a biographical sketching. This is what I have named this section. So again, sir, you are warmly welcome to this live session. We are live streaming on DC Nepal and live on Facebook. DC Nepal is a very vibrant online media with great viewership. And so, first of all, I would like to move you to your childhood. I understand when I read about you and listen to your interviews. There is a very beautiful thing that I noticed about your childhood, because you were like interested in those sadhus and gurus, and then Samons, Ramdas. These are the stories that get interconnected with you. Would you mind highlighting some of your childhood experiences, how those experiences shaped you as a poet now?
Right. Thank you very much. People often ask me how you became a poet and what inspired you to become a poet. I told them I became a poet even when I didn't know I was a poet. What poetry is. So without my knowing, it came to me. It came knocking at my door. So Muse has been benevolent with me. The Muse has been kind to me. Muse has kind of showered its glory on me in very early life. My father, as you know, I grew up in Punjab, and there's a small town called Nangal Township in the Himalayas, in the Aravali, in the hills in the Mahabharata range. So it's a small town. Bhakra Nangal is a very famous dam that was built in right after independence in India. So my father worked there, and all of a sudden he became interested in these sadhus, the Naga sadhus, who don't, live a kind of settled life. They move from place to place, and they don't wear clothes. They live harsh lives. They put ash over their body. They move around in just bare line clothes, and they have dreadlocks. And the whole idea is to torture the body, because body is evil. Body desires, body lusts. So don't give body what it wants. That's one of the Hindu segments of sannyasis and tyagis and bairagis. So they are different, classifications, different sects of Hindu ascetics. So my father came in touch with the tyagis. Tyagis are the ones who renounce the world. Bairagis are one who renounce but still stay in touch with the society. Bairagis, tyagis, all these
Okay.
different. So tyagis are the one who stay away from society, and they lead these harsh lives, and they stay in the jungles, or they smoke hashish, and they sit on fire, and they live this they have a stone as a pillow. They sleep on a bare bed. They do this tantric yoga. When you see them in these famous, it's actually part of my big novel that I'm finishing right now. It comes in that as a major theme and major character. So he would take us every weekend to this ashram, which is on the side of the river, Satluj, a blue river, beautiful blue river, and on its edge was this little shack, and a beautiful temple on the top of this mountain. And so I would go there, and we'll carry fruits and vegetables, and gifts and milk, and we offer them.
How
Yeah,
old were
and
you at
then
that time? I'm sorry to cut
I
you.
was about 6 to 7, 6 year, 5 year, 6 year old, even
Oh,
earlier. Like when I'm 4 or 5, my father started taking us there, and so we'll go on these holidays, or because I live half of the year with my father and half of the year with my mother's father, my grandfather, my maternal grandparent, because he didn't have it in Punjab, in Nakoder. So I spent my life between Punjab, the small town Nakoder, and Nangal Township, which is a Himalayan kind of town.
Yeah.
So one of these days, when the Guru Purnima, like the day of the Guru,
right,
he takes me when I was 6 or 7, and he takes me to this ashram, and in a smoky hut with
right.
all these sadhus, and
Yeah.
and he tells the sadhu, he says, Guru, I have 2 sons. He's the elder one, and I wanted to donate him to you. Please accept
Wow.
accept him as my gift, as my donation. I want him to serve your ashram, and give him the manka. Accept him as your youngest disciple, and give him the pendant, the manka they call it, guru panika. That once you wear that pendant, you
Right.
become the sadhu.
Sad. Yeah.
And it's very awkward situation. I am in the smoke-filled house, and all these Naga semi-naked sadhus, and my mother is sitting outside in the door. She can't even come in because she's not supposed to enter the celibate sadhu's den. And I'm looking at back, and I'm thinking, would I never go back to my village? Will I never go back to my school? Will I never go and see my grandparents? I wouldn't ever go back to my father or my mother's place. It's such an intense moment, and I'm petrified. And then this guy smokes hashish, and he takes a long puff, and he coughs about 5 minutes,
Right.
and then
That's
he looks at me, he says, bloodshot eyes. you know I'm a 7-year-old kind of shivering boy, and a kind of I'm trembling with fear. And he says, my father, he says, he's a good boy, send him to school. Because he had known me. I used to go there and used to recite mantras, do Ramayana, Mahabharata, Gita. So I had memorized these scriptures from early age. And because my grandpa was pretty religious guy, so they taught, I'm being a Brahmin, they taught me all these, recitals and mantras, and, so they were already impressed with me. They knew I was a brilliant boy. I mean, in the sense that I could memorize all these scriptures.
right.
So they actually wanted me to go out and in the world, and they were in awe of me. So as I understood, he said, no, don't give it to us, because take him to school, send him to school, and he will become famous. He will become worldly known, and he will travel the world, kind of thing.
Wow.
Not exactly what I'm saying, but like sort of the thing. He will travel the world. He belongs to the
So
world, something like
I'm
that.
sorry to cut you, but like, why did your dad want to donate you there? Like, he wanted you to learn something about their.
Yeah, he
Uh,
was he was kind of passionately devoted to them. I mean, to them they were like the whole world,
oh,
and he was
okay.
like a devout disciple.
Mm-hmm.
And also, in India, Nepal, the religion is a living phenomena.
Right.
It's not just visiting a church or visiting a temple once in a while. People live lives as prescribed in the scriptures.
Right.
So my father sort of actually he had a belief that serving them will give him good life, give him
Hmm.
promotion in his job, or bring prosperity to the family.
Right.
He was like thoroughly devout, person. So that sort of, but then they rejected me,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
as a disciple. But I sort of kept going to them every summer, and I washed their dishes. I cooked for them or helped them in their daily chores, and I learned from them the art of mantra, the art of meditation, and I sort of sought humility, compassion, and renunciation in their company. Also, what I learned was the whole vagabond thing, that you don't stay in a place more than 3 days, and don't get attached to a place. The whole
Yeah.
idea, Buddhist idea, is not don't get attached to anything,
Right.
not even to a place. So they travel from place to place, from one ashram to another ashram. They have this network of, pilgrimages. They have like their ashrams from different places. They move from, so they don't stay in one place. They are in Kathmandu one day, next day they are in Gorakhpur, next they are Haridwar, they are in Vrindavan. So they keep moving. They have this net. Similarly, then as I grew up, and I picked up this life of a wandering poet. I built my own ashrams and my own, power places where I can travel throughout Europe and America and India, Nepal. So I built this, like similar. So I think I kind of this unknowingly this life of wandering poet or wandering saint. It was thrust upon me somehow because I kind of unconsciously probably desired it, though they didn't accept me as their disciple.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the main title of my novel. This not of flesh and blood. So my gurus were not of flesh and blood.
Right.
Now,
So
then when I started looking for them, then I went to the Himalayas and tried to learn and try to look for them. So the Himalayas are my gurus, and they're not of flesh and blood. So I found other gurus.
right.
So this kind of works with that kind of
Yeah.
notion.
Yeah. So it's amazing that you even in your youth, adolescent, like like when people fall in love or go around doing mischievous things, but you were going to the saints' hearts, and then you were helping them out, and then listening to their mantras. So, like the way you mentioned it, you probably you were born to be a poet like this, right? Inspired from your early childhood.
I didn't know actually what poetry is, or no, I was no idea. I was like just doing, and then I grew up, and slowly I went to universities and campus, and I actually in my neighborhood I had the poet, very Urdu poet, very famous poet in my town, Punjab, and where his name was he's very famous actually in Urdu. He's called Josh Malsiani. He's a famous Urdu poet. So he was my neighbor. And I will see when in the evening we'll kind of sprinkle the water in the crowd and put up the seats and give these poets hookah and all. They will come and they'll play on the gurgle on the hookah and they will smoke and they will recite Urdu, couplets and, they will recite poem and they will sit. And I will see a lot of posts coming, like postmen bringing loads of letters every day. So I was wondering who is sending these letters to him.
Yeah.
I was so fascinated. And we didn't like him because he was very harsh with children. Like if our ball will fall in his court, he wouldn't give it to us.
Okay.
He didn't like us.
Yeah.
And a poet, he wanted to can live a kind of quiet life, but we were like disturbing him. So I sort of didn't like him in fact.
Uh,
But when he died, and he got Padam Shri in India, like the biggest honor from Indian government.
yeah.
So I saw the whole military coming and saluting him, and his funeral was attended like a huge national thing. Then I understood that he was a big guy. Otherwise, we hated him, but he was our neighbor, and so we thought he's a kind of big guy, and I had no idea how big a poet can be. So when
Yeah.
I just joined university. I was just in 11th or 12th. So then I understood that and he was on television. Television had just come in our village. So I saw that he was being interviewed and he was still they were like talking about him, making documentaries about him. So he also kind of inspired me in a sense that the poetry is someone to be recognized and poetry is and is a kind of nice thing to be. So that also. And then I went to a university and also in Punjab, another incident happened was that my father was a trustee of a small shrine in village.
Yeah.
And so other day I was talking to my friend in Rajasthan, a poet called a guy called Ramanand Rathi, a short story writer from Rajasthan. He was saying what you did in your village it was very strange, and it's only an innocent guy can do it. So what happened is I was go to the shrine and I was and this is the shrine devoted to the serpent spirit. It's kind of Rajasthani deity in our town. It's called
Yeah.
Guga Sai. So and they beat the drum and they play, and I will start crawling around the shrine like a serpent at a kind of shamanic trance. Again, I had no idea what is happening to me. So that kind of initiation into healing and shamanic practice. But I was ashamed of it. I thought, it happened to me once. I started crawling around the shrine like a serpent. And people thought I'm a Babaji. Everybody bowed to me, even my grandpa bowed. But I thought my friends will think, my school friends or boys and girls will think I'm crazy.
Yeah. Of
I'm kind of
course.
stupid. So
Yeah.
I was ashamed of it. I'm thoroughly humiliated at this that happened to me. So I tried to suppress it. And over the years, I got rid of it. When I came to university and science and physics and all the cause and effect. And so I was so happy to get rid of this humdrum kind of thing that was happening to me, the superstitious kind of world where I was in.
Uh,
And later, when I grew up and I became a poet, and when I read poems, I see
Yeah, I
this
want to just
spirit.
sorry to interrupt you. So I just want to highlight you like, okay, how do you get into the world of reading? It seems like you had some environment at your home, like your parents encouraged you into reading, or like your first exposure to reading and then into writing poetry. Can we highlight on that side?
I didn't get it. Can you repeat?
I'm just curious how you get into reading poetry. Like you mentioned, you had the impact of the Simons, those saints, right? Now, I would like to know, like, how you get into reading poetry or reading books, and also into writing.
Yeah. So this was that I was saying I suppressed the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
that shamanic thing. I didn't
Right.
like it because I thought it's again old fashioned and it's stupid
Yes.
and it's superstition. But when I grew up, I went to universities. I was doing research and I met this poet, American poet called David Ray. He was a Fulbright Indo-US fellow in Jaipur, and in his company I realized that that he kind of encouraged me. He was doing this special issue of a very famous magazine called New Letters, which even now exists. It's published from University of Missouri, Kansas City. It's a kind of university magazine called New Letters. He was the editor of that, and he was trying to publish this India issue and getting all these Indian writers. So he saw me as a kind of good apprentice, as a good disciple, and he employed me to reading these manuscripts and helping him in kind of making a selection. And my guru, another guru, Professor this Amrajit Singh, who was his co-editor, they were both working on it. And so David Ray encouraged me and introduced me to the American world, the poetry and what poetry is. And I became an apprentice. I sort of learned from him the art of writing and what Western poetry is. Because the other way, I was doing MPhil and I was doing masters in literature, but they were like talking of very traditional stuff, academic stuff like Dryden and Shakespeare and
Yeah.
postmodern and this kind of crazy bullshit stuff
Right.
that university teachers talk all the time.
Right.
But David Ray kind of brought me to this creative writing world, and instead of me doing some PhD on some novel or some poetry, kind of some special, being a special Dickens specialist or Shakespeare specialist, he asked me to write my own work.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me to. He looked at my work and he said, "Oh, you should write more." And so I learned from him. I think I stayed with him a couple of years, and I learned this he introduced me to the American world, to the Western world, to the Greeks, and so he was a very good guru in a way. And
Yeah.
so I learned all this the formal, tantrums of creative writing and how to write poetry, how to write fiction. So he was very much instrumental. I think David Ray and also I was going to be an actor. I was playing Brecht and Shakespeare. I was doing theater, but then he said, "No, you should write. You should write poetry." So he kind of molded and then he made me on the one of the readers of New Letters, and I started, so this kind of helped me in understand and learn and write, and so I changed the whole thing. U-turn. I was going to be an actor, and I was thinking of going to National School of Drama or stuff like that, and I was doing theater. Then I started writing poetry, and I became involved in this world.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. So that covers one of my question already. So I would like to shortly go on my another question, that is, did you ever imagine yourself becoming a world famous poet? Like, when did it occur in your life that you'll be really born for poetry, and then once you get this fame, like now you are recognized as world-renowned Himalayan poet, celebrated, do you feel the pressure of it, like mental emotional pressure of it? How do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a humble thing. I am a very humble person. I don't expect much from life, and also I lived in Nepal for long, in India and Nepal. So I lived in. I worked like before traveling. I lived in Nepal, and I taught at university campuses, and I wrote poetry and hung out with poets in Kathmandu, and and in Delhi, and so I was all the time as a small. I mean, I never wanted to be a world famous, but I wanted to be a small poet from a small place, from the edge of the world. That's why
Mhm.
my whole thing. So you don't have to be big to be a big person. I mean, if you're good to yourself and to your world, I think that's good enough. So I never had this ambition of becoming a world. I wanted to be just a small poet from a small nation and a small edge of the world. So
Yeah.
and I was reading these Nepali poets and Rimal and all these, hanging out with these Nepalese poets, and it's time of pre-panchayat, the panchayat time,
Yeah.
pre-democratic upsurge
Mhm.
before 1990s. So then poets were very active in overthrowing all these autocratic regimes, and all over the world it was happening.
Right.
So I was part of that, and I learned actually my craft on these. But then it was very political. Nepali poetry is very political. Because it has been involved in the political movements and
Yeah,
overthrowing the regimes.
to some extent it still sounds like that, because more people
Right.
love to like about politics, and the main attention
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
towards politics. And even in social media we see mostly poetry as a political commentary rather than as a craft.
Right.
Yeah, we'll come to that point again. So I would like to now go to, because we are 6:30, because we have to cover 4 sections. Like, well, we covered one section, so we have to be mindful about time also. The next section is textual interaction, in which we will be delving into some of your books and poetry, and then discussing about how your craft has been meaningful to the people, and how your experience have been embedded with your craft. So let's talk about Alchemy of Nine Smiles, nine long poems. Would you like to recite a poem? I have a poem, Hunger Cannot Write a Poem. Uh, uh,
Right.
is this in your access? If you can recite
Yeah.
this poetry before we discuss.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So I would like to give a little introduction to this poem.
Uh-huh.
This is a new book that came out, Alchemy of Nine Smiles,
Right,
and this just came out this year. And this is a longer poems. So this is one of my poems, which was written during my early struggle
right,
in New Delhi and in Kathmandu. You know,
the-
I it's not easy to be a poet in Nepal or India. It's very harsh because Kabir, the devotional poet, says, if you want to be a poet, put your house on fire and
right,
come with me and be a poet. It's not easy to be a poet.
right,
But poetry is not a career. It's a kind of, in a way you don't make a living with that.
mm,
But I exactly did that. So I found it very hard to survive as a poet. And so I was in Delhi and I was in Kathmandu and I was trying to do a magazine and to translate poetry and publish a little here and there, writing columns in Kathmandu Post or in Himalayan Times, trying to build up Pratik, the magazine that I did. So it was like putting a house on fire. And I used to teach at the university. I quit my job at Christian College and I started becoming a full-time poet. So that's where the change occurred. So I said, what do I do now? So I have to write. I have to be a full-time poet. So I started writing poems on Lake Feva, on Annapurna, and that's how it snowballed into the whole Himalayan thing.
right,
And because I had time on my fingers. So this poem actually talks about my early struggles when I was trying to work as a poet. And I quit my job and I'm trying to be a full-time poet.
right.
So this talks about that.
Yeah,
And it's very, as
the
Kabir
title
says,
the title really interests me, because hunger cannot write the poetry. So
yes. So
we will
yeah, I mean
talk
there are
about it.
two opinions. Either people say that, oh, you have to be like you have to be hungry to write about hunger. I think hungry poet can hunger cannot write a poem. You have to have some, so it's kind of
Yeah, let's go to the
playing with
poetry
that.
first. Yeah.
Sitting astride my feeble nakedness, a large-limbed lady spins erratic notes from a nightmare of ruthless tires racing over the blistering roads of an outrageous summer. Gray haired, pale like a shamed dragon of a cursed valley, I exert tirelessly on the threadbare fiction of my life. Past gobs of phlegm that they shoot onto the crumbling walls of Delhi street. Anger rises along the smoke curls of the bidis, of local plumbers, wall painters, rickshaw pullers, and bursts along the explosion of plump rats grabbed the first thing in the morning and smashed on streets stinking edge, the entails coming out like brutal banquet of bleeding canvas. Anger appears before benefactor Subhash Chaiwala for a free cup of tea, and after a brief itchy wait, drops the smelly shroud wrapped around her withering, scraggy limbs. Anger laughs a delirious laugh, shakes as a shaman, and coughs in an eruption of asthmatic attack, looks up to the murky sky to conjure the day's number for a lottery. Anger wakes up, puts on a mark uniform, raises a rod, opens the wormy legs of a lunatic asleep in the corridors of a bleeding democracy. Opposite Supreme Court, anger commands the deafening chaos of cities' blood vessels. A decade passes thus. Anger cries at night, scuttles up and down the skyscrapers of frenzy, humiliated at the hands of high-tech wizards. Anger cries like a baby. Anger dreams of a multinational father coming over from the backyard to adopt him in his fairy tales crusted edge. Where were you, Pop, when all the money was being made? Quietly breathing hashish air, meditating on a vacuum with Naga ascetics on the quiet banks of Satluj, Gangotri. Another decade passes. Anger looks for an opportunity. Why am I so afraid of violence anymore? I try this, says anger. I try that. A long ya utters anger. Learns to chuckle like Gandhi. Ya, insists anger. I'm trying my luck in the lush jungles of your benign opportunities. Won't you buy me, CEO? Yes, having had me, why would you want anything else but this? A fresh, a soul fresh and sanguine from the suburbs of Punjab. Here, my most beautiful women dying in the plum city banks, checkbooks refuse to give up, prefer to suffer in the elysium of affluence, to crawl back into an awkward back street of a heated dream, to enact orgies of a forgotten lust. Is this what they wrote in my destiny as culmination of my life story? Shall I poison them all, your pets, including the fat rats chewing the damp books of my sleep? Ma, here in that violet dark of the city, I miss you so much. Now I know what it means to stand on the edge of a cliff with fragile, failing limbs. Here on Sundays, before beginning my feverish ravings to find a grain of good fortune, I drop my prized coin in the bucket of oil with a makeshift deity dipped in it, a rusting scrap of iron carved into the horrid icon of Lord Shani. All day long, in the streets of Daryaganj, Lal Kuan, Connaught Place, Votaiti, New Road, where in every eye I see a demon of hunger, a feel of
Maybe
phlegm in every
excuse sir.
nose.
It seems long. So can we stop it now and go
Yeah,
for
I
question?
think
Yeah.
this goes on and on.
Yeah. Okay. So because our viewers audience might get distracted anyway. So how would you define yeah, about hunger cannot write a poetry, because you already discussed about the background, so that covers my question that was going to come after you said the poetry. So that is already covered. One thing that I would like to ask you is, how would you define a poetic talent? Inborn quality, practice, or outcome of pathetic experience and hardships of life? In a very couple sentence, can you highlight that?
So can you say it again?
How would you define a poetic talent? A poetic
Okay.
talent is an inborn quality, practice, or outcome of pathetic experiences and hardships.
I mean, it's all mix. It's not just, I mean, you have to have this, people are like this left brain and right brain. So some people think in images. Some people think in mathematical terms. They can make an image, okay, can make a metaphor. And poetry is all metaphors. So some poets think in terms of metaphors. They can't think just in sheer basic mathematical terms.
Mhm.
So I think you're born, your makeup is, you're born with this mindset, with this emotional framework where you write poetry. So some poets, I mean, you can make someone a poet because it has to have the basic emotional kind of set. Like I think in metaphors.
Yeah,
So poets think in metaphors. Poet can't think. I can't think straight, even
yeah,
like in sheer logical terms. So
yeah.
I think there's something to do with it's a mixed thing, something to do with the way you're born with, the kind of mind you have, and then also like here it says, is stitching and unstitching is craft. You have to learn the craft. So just being born with the image, I always say in Nepal, like when in Nepal, everybody's a poet. Nepal is the only country in the world after Ireland, everybody's a poet. But then you have to learn the craft. You have to learn. It's not just that once you're a poet and you're always a poet. In Nepal, you can go to any restaurant, any cafe, any hillside, even a porter, or even a billionaire, even a king, or a billion or prime minister. Everybody can write poetry. Clerk. But thing is, to be a professional poet, you have to learn the master of the craft. So you have to, it's a kind of like Eliot says that a word thrown between the reader and the writer. So it's a kind of you have to labor a little bit.
Yeah.
So you need a cultivated audience as well as you need to be cultivated yourself in the tradition.
Okay.
So it's a mixed kind of thing.
Thank you. So, in Alchemy of Nine Smiles, you seem to focus on human cost of cross-border conflict, sectarian strife, diaspora mourning on the extinguished hearts. Can you explain how you're traveling to the Himalayas, hometown, and the globe mentally and physically triggered these poems?
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing this book, especially the earthquake poems, which I wanted you to show a video. So and then there was an earthquake in Nepal, and right after there was the blockage, and there was a political turmoil in Tarai. So that's a very, very crucial framework in which this book was written. So I was trying to, this whole political turmoil and earthquake, and then so this happened all at one same time. So I was trying to record that, and so that way I was working. That whole thing appears in this book.
Okay, thank you so much. So we were going to next poetry collection, that is Blizzard in My Bones, 5 thematic sections and an epilogue, each section containing various numbers of poems. In the blurb by Tony Barnstone, the Albert Utopian professor and chair of English Whittier College, author, translator of Everyone's Chinese erotic poems, Tony writes Yuyutsu's newer poems read like Federico Garcia Lorca having a Hindu dream, like Allen Ginsberg risen from dead and howling out a peyote vision for 2013. Here are the twin towers flaming like the red tongue of Kali, goddess of destruction, a city like yellow-eyed demon, hurricane Sandy, burrowing into the islands, growing like a furious porcupine. Sharma is a salmon, like black back bulging, like from magical rainbows, serpent from an Hindu heaven. I really liked and amazed with this comment, serpent from Hindu heaven. I'd love you to explain, elaborate you. How would you react to the comment to your poetry as serpent from an Hindu heaven?
Yeah, I mean it's from a
it
line
seems to
from
have a
line from the book. Yeah.
right. It is echoing how the epic poem, Milton's epic poem, and the Paradise Lost, where Milton makes serpent hero instead of his intention was not to make serpent hero, but happened to be hero, right? In Paradise
Right.
Lost. So now here is Hindu heaven, and you are a serpent. And can you please explain it how you relate it to your poetry?
Well, I mean, it actually, Tony is a great guy. He's a great poet and a lovely poet. And he was here in Kathmandu last year, and we had a Himalayan Literature Festival last year. He was here. We had wonderful time with him, and we were, he want to do it again in next year in May, end of May and June. There'll be another segment of Himalayan Literature Festival and workshop. So I'm trying to now working on that. So Tony, virtually this book is about New York City. I admire New York City. I think I lived long in Europe and in India, Nepal. But no matter how long you live in Nepal or India, you never be in a place an Indian unless somebody foreigner comes and lives here. You will never, because you have to have caste and you have to have karma. And also in Europe, you never be Irish or German or French. No matter how long you live there. But you come to New York City, the next day you're a New Yorker. It's a beautiful place because the whole humanity survives on these subways and in the boroughs. So I love New York City, and I say that if humanity ever evolves, it will look like New York City. So that book, Blizzard in My Bones, is a tribute to this beautiful place. I mean, it's a special place, New York City, the first city of the world, and I admire the city very much. Not that I used to teach. I would go there and teach at Columbia or New York, New York University, or other places. But I admire the whole feel of, they don't judge you. They don't say where you're from. It's like, who are you? In Nepal, first thing question is, "हजुर को घर कहाँ हो?" Where, कहाँ हो? थर के हो?
Yeah,
It's not,
exactly.
this wouldn't happen in New York City. You are New Yorker. So that's the whole spirit of the cosmopolitan spirit of New York. I celebrate. So that's what he says, bringing Hindu heaven and the serpents from Hindu heaven, and also serpent refers to the shamanic experience that I had when I was a small child in Punjab, and when I was so that experience emerges in that shamanic. There's a sequence in the
Okay,
book
good.
where
So
my
I was like, when like I read Serpent from Hindu Heaven, I immediately compared it with John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Serpent
right,
is actually hero, not the
right,
villain, right? And then
yes,
so maybe you recreated the world, Western world, like New York, like in a way
right.
it sounds like a new world, a new generation, a new way to view the world. So thank you so much for doing this, and then it's a great compliment, I guess, to we received
Thanks
by
to Tony for writing this lovely blur,
right. Yeah,
and
thank you,
appreciating the
Tony.
poem.
Right.
Mm.
So next question is: you are also compared with Pablo Neruda. Often the critics have identified your poems that they echo Pablo Neruda. Neruda, I just want to introduce Neruda. In short, he is a Chilean poet best known for his poems about love expressed through metaphors and images of nature. His famous poetry collection of collection of poetry, 20 love poems and a song of despair in English. So I have one quote from Pablo Neruda also. You can cut all flowers, but you can't keep spring from coming. You can
All
cut
right.
all flowers, but you cannot come spring from coming. So that's a great. How do you find yourself closer to Pablo Neruda?
It's a huge, giant compliment. Thanks to my friends, Mike Graves and other institutes who have dubbed me as Himalayan Neruda. I think it's a great compliment. It's a great company to live, up to. And I was, in fact, I mean, the whole the what Mike is talking is, or others are talking is, my whole idea to belong and create an image out of nothing, or celebrate life as it comes my way. It's very Hindu or kind of Asian way of looking at things. But also, I that's what I learned from these holy people, to celebrate whatever little you have, and also the exuberance of images, and of creating, like his ode to potatoes, and ode to the socks, and he celebrated all that came to him. So his whole flood of images that Neruda has, also the idea of celebration. I think that's what that's where I made a departure from a typical Nepali poet. That I started celebrating Himalayas,
Yeah, exactly.
Annapurnas,
Yeah,
Everest. So
yeah,
I, instead of being political and criticizing and writing poetry in fashion of Gopal Prasad Rimal or Bhupi Sirchan, I try to do the different thing. I go to the Himalayas and try celebrating the life and people, the beauty of glaciers, and the people struggling for bare survival in these idyllic landscapes. That became my subject. And I think it takes me many lives to describe them, the Himalayas and the
right.
people there. They're so beautiful and
Yeah,
so wonderful. So I think that's what brings me close to Neruda in a way. That's what Neruda does. He celebrates life, and the whole admiration of life as it exists. And
right.
that's what kind of the comparison
Okay.
comes there.
So with this, we are going to our next section, that is hitting the head, brainstorming about writing. Here we'll be talking about more about writing as a craft, and then some thematic things, and also the issue of internationalizing Nepali poetry, where Yuyutsu Sharma has played a pivotal role. Um, we have an organization, Antarashtriya Nepali Sahitya Samaj, INLS, and I'm also one of the board member in Northern California chapter. I'm the general secretary of INLS Northern California chapter. So we will be highlighting about how we can actually internationalize Nepali literature. So in this section, my first question to you is, your poems explore spirituality, nature, and human experiences. You have often spoken in interviews about relationship of poetry with spirituality, explore the unexplorable, and the Vedic tradition, referring to the Vedic tradition as pioneer of many scientific concepts of today. How would you relate to them, like spirituality, poetry, traveling?
Right. So that's as I was saying earlier. So the whole celebration of Himalayas or of New York City, as a great place where humanity thrives, where So this when you start celebrating, I think the whole idea concept of spirituality when you explore even in the landscape, you explore the spiritual elements and celebrate them. And also, I was recently in Denver, and Padam G and all INLS people. I
Mhm.
was, they hosted me. I'm pretty in touch with the INLS people, and they're very kind and generous in hosting me in several places. So the work that you guys are doing is marvelous, and I think we need to do more of this. And the idea of internationalizing Nepali literature. I just finished translation of Gopal Sadrimal, who is my favorite poet. So
Yeah.
we are working on with a publisher and trying to get it
Okay.
out in America, and also doing the local editions. So his book will be out this year or next year. So we are working on it. So we have to bring our I think Rimal is par excellence. He's as good as any great writer in the world. So, but we should bring our writers to the forefront, and especially a lot of we should. There's a lot of lobbying, like Poles did a lot of lobbying for Shimboska. She got
Yeah.
Nobel Prize.
Right.
So it's a Nepalese people, a Nepalese government or Nepalese or Asian governments have to work for the writers and lobby for them or spend some money on them, so to promote them. But unfortunately, there's nothing except our individual efforts, like you and me, and other individual
Yeah.
writers.
Yeah. This is
So
very
so that
unfortunate because, yeah, like today I can
so
see there are
the
many
people who
poet.
are who can do it are
Yeah.
not doing it,
Yeah. Exactly.
but there's a lot of effort needed. So, but I'm glad that individuals are doing it. People like you and me, or like other people who are contributing to make Nepali literature available outside the world. There is a significant effort, and we just did this novel by Hiranya Bhojpuri. We did new by two young poets of Nepal, Bhuvan Thapalia and Arun Budatoki. Their, we just launched their new books, and
Mhm.
I do Pratik. I published a lot of poets. I think we have to have a kind of a network of our, like those holy people going to place.
Right.
We must have these poetry pilgrimages and
Yeah.
these different these power places where Nepali poetry or Nepali writing can thrive and survive and is welcome. So that
Yeah.
that will be a vital role for INLS and other institutes.
Yeah.
Of course,
So
Nepal, they are doing nothing. Those who can do, they don't even know what to do. That's the
exactly.
tragic
So this is not
fact.
like, it seems like this is not their point of focus. Like unless like the knowledge thrives, development real in real sense doesn't happen, because even we can see in ancient civilizations like Rome, the Greek civilizations, they the knowledge, the Renaissance happened. There were great scholars, they great philosophers. They wrote poetry, they wrote great literature, and that seems to have impact on how they shape their society, how they shape the consciousness. So despite having our country like 30, 40 years long democracy, but like though there are significant things done, but there is no focus towards education, about enlightening people, about making people like. And then in this connection, like we have International Nepali Literary Society, INLS, that is working on internationalizing Nepali literature. But there is a criticism that it only focuses on Nepali poets. But Nepali literature does not only mean literature written in Nepali language, but literature written in English language is also Nepali literature. So,
Right.
how do you think like this international organization with global like exposure or global branches can incorporate English writing into its framework?
Yeah, I mean, this institute that you're talking, INLS, is very basic kind of. It's like people living expats and they work all day long. They do daily job, and then they have little time to promote. I think that's okay. They are not specialists. So they're just ordinary people. They're not even very good writers. Most of
Right,
them
right.
are
Yeah,
average writers.
exactly.
They are enthusiasts.
Yeah.
They are like the ones who couldn't write, who left their country. They could have
Uh,
been a bigger poet. So
yeah.
now they came and work. They do a day job, and then they find some hours to work. And I think it's a good thing. They're connecting people and they're trying to build a platform. I mean, I don't expect much from them. But they're then in Nepal, they have institute that can do. They have money and they have budget. And so what INLS is it called it? So what they're doing is okay. I'm happy because they're not supposed to do this. They're just doing they're Nepali literature enthusiasts and they want to do something. They're welcome. They're doing on their own. But
Right.
the institutes in Nepal who can do things, they don't even know what to do. I think that the whole irony is they don't know how to do it or what to do. That's
You
the
know,
whole
like there is come something. So, like when we did this book, Kabya, right? We published this book, and then, like this is very unfortunate. Like this is like I don't say it's a very great book that we did, but this is one of the book that represents Nepali literature. At this point, there is not none poetry collection like this doesn't exist. So I can see like in Nepal, like Nepali intellectuals, like those who write poetry, right, who have published books. There's a kind of a silence. I'm kind of
right.
amazed with this silence, like because if somebody is doing something that they have to be encouraged, and on the other side is like analysts I'm talking about, like though they are doing very great, it's a great resource
Right.
because we have like even if Nepali government is not doing something, that's true. But I mean, unless there is a drastic change, that's not going to happen sooner. But internationally, I guess with INLS or like our collaboration can make a change. This is what I can see because we have resources. At least couple dollars spent for literature
Right.
per year, we afford that. So if we make a kind of a combined effort, like I guess we can make
Yes.
a difference. And I welcome the way you have been doing. And in the days to come, probably we'll be more collaborating on things through this organization to bring
Yes.
into Nepali English writing into the framework of Nepali literature, and then we can probably be working on that. And I really
Yes,
appreciate your
I am
views.
very happy with INLS. I'm very
Yeah,
happy. They are doing, I mean, what they more than I expected.
yeah,
They are trying to bring together. Of course, in every organization there are some problems.
right.
That's not considering that. But I think I'm very delighted. But I'm talking about the budget that they have, money they have, and the responsibility they have in Nepal. None of them they're not doing anything. It's all party. Every party comes and they put their own things, and then the party
Yeah,
changes and everything changes. So
yeah.
that's the party problem, and then not the real literature that comes out. So that there's a lot of problems in that, and so let's not go there because it's a very sad area,
Exactly.
and
So
uh,
we're towards the end of this section. I would like to focus on a question that is more like very important for a learner like me or many poetry enthusiasts. We want to learn. We want to know how to write a poetry. Like, how do you support creative writing? Like, I know you have been supporting creative writers going globally. Any tips for new poets and how difficult is it to serve? Yeah, we have already touched that. But can you highlight your reading habits, your like typical reading habit, typical a day when you spend somehow reading, somehow writing, and how would you encourage new poets to write a poetry? That
right.
part.
So as I said that in Nepal everybody's a poet
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah,
So so there are many poets, but thing is to make a living as a poet or to be a full-fledged poet is a very harsh thing, as Kabir says, that you put your house on fire and come with me and be a poet.
yeah,
So by being a poet, and that's what I did. I put my house on fire, quit my job, and so I was in Denver recently, and there was a Lighthouse Festival. I had this workshop. It was about how to build your niche as a poet. So they asked me, and there were like 12 people who came paying $75 to learn how to build a niche as a poet. So I mean, there's interest in the world. They want to know how I'm doing or how to survive as a poet. It's a huge thing. Not it's like a poetry as the thing goes doesn't sell. or is not as compared to fiction or non-fiction. But then as I lived, and I would suggest is to, I mean, first of all, if you give your full attention to something, it's sure to sure to flourish. So first of all, we need to give full time, and it's a hard task again to give full time to your to poetry. The poetry, as they say, is a kind of cruel mistress. It's you more it demands attention. More you try to please it, more difficult it becomes. So so poetry is a cruel mistress. You have to remember it. So you have to please her, and it's not and then it's not like a wife, it's a mistress. You have to keep pleasing her.
Right.
So it's a very difficult terrain that you have to travel. And then you have to be aware of the entire tradition. So when you travel the world, you have to be aware of the world tradition. That's why I run this literary magazine, Pratik. I publish all the poets I meet across in the world, or from all Europe, Latin America, Africa, Asia. So we have special issues on China or on South Asia, on French poetry or Latin American poetry. So I'm exploring these. So we have to have our minds open and belong to the world and learn what we can and assimilate it into our own writing. And because not much is available in books are not available in Nepal, not much is known. We know our world, we know our poets, but we don't know what's happening outside the world. That's
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
one of my points in publishing Pratik is to bring the rest of the world to Nepal so they can, at a reasonable price, they can see and we can translate it further. So there's always talk of Nepali literature being translated into English. No, we have to translate other world also. We should know what others are writing, not just translating our work to other. It's not a one-way traffic. It's not just one-way road. So you have to translate your work to others and also learn what others are writing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's our effort.
Uh,
So I think it's a very hard work. I would encourage people to write and to read and to be aware of and but have a very strong heart and be committed. And remember, poetry is a cruel mistress.
Cruel mistress. Okay. So one thing I want to just poke in here. Uh, what do you see is the trend of poetry in the world today? Like the poetry trend, like how poetry are written, like the thematic things by style wise or theme wise. What is the common trend that you see in world poetry today?
Well, poetry is becoming with the social media, with the internet, and so poetry is becoming more and more viable. And so the main also they are now, like if there were like poets in America or poets in Europe, they work a lot in building, this other like spoken word or poetry jams or creative writing schools, and they build these different platforms where now I wouldn't be, if like 40 years ago I wouldn't be able to travel that much because my letter will take forever. I know it was the whole academic world was more academic and studying of Shakespeare and study of theories, you know. But now with the poetry being taught in America, like every year there are hundreds of poets coming up after MFA, and all these
Yeah,
classes and
right.
novelists are coming up. So the whole new mushrooming of writing all across the world and even in smaller countries in Africa, Latin America, but I find in Latin America and Africa more poetry being like in Nepal or India, more vibrant as a and I'm so very fascinated by Latin American poetry, the images, the surrealism. I miss in Nepal. In Nepal, not many poets are influenced by surrealist art or surrealist mode of writing. It's very political, mostly political predominantly,
Yeah, yeah,
or very emotional,
yeah.
where, or and Persian or ancient Indian, because most of the Nepalese poets read Hindi literature or translations in Hindi. So even in the older times, so it's very. But I think I like lot to learn from the rest of the world for Nepali poets and novelists, and especially now with then the translations are available with the internet and with the ebooks. So it's very vibrant, and especially like I haven't seen any surrealist influence in Nepali poetry so far. It hasn't come yet.
Yeah, okay.
And also
That's
art.
a good
Not
area they
much of
can work
art
on.
is available because we don't have many art galleries, and poets are not aware of artists. I mean, all they know is like Picasso, or they are like you live in New York City, you or London, you go to these Met and go to these all these art. So there's a lot of exposure needed,
Right. Thank you,
and
sir.
I think but the good thing is internet and this modern day expansion of social media is helping in a lot. So I think it's over the years the face of Nepali poetry and Nepali writing will change,
Yeah.
and with the new writers coming like you, it will be a
Thank you.
great support.
Yeah, I'm just a learner. I'm trying to learn poetry. And more like I love writing Nepali satire, more focused on comedy satire poetry, and then
Great.
but I do some try to give some try to English poetry also. But I find myself, I think it's you said mistress, very crazy mistress is very hard, I guess.
No,
But
but thing is
again,
this kind of dialogue, this kind of platform
yeah,
that you're doing is very
yeah,
important, is very crucial.
yeah,
That will help others in Nepal, those who want to learn.
right.
And when you are introducing these new writers and bringing them and having a dialogue, that's important because you, as a Nepali speaker, as well as a Nepali writer who write in English, this is a very lovely platform for younger generations to learn and to
Yeah,
interact
exactly.
with.
I don't know
Mhm.
how I will be helping, but like because I do have a deep respect for literature, Nepali literature, English literature, and then I felt like a conversation like this is something new, unique that we can do, and then also it makes myself reading. Like last time I was doing with Samrat Upadhyaya, and I read his 6 novels in 2 months. So it was very challenging. And now last 2 months I've been reading about you, like listening to your interviews and all that, so it is actually giving me some very productive knowledge, and it's very good thing for myself too, and I believe for like many students, because I belong to Nepal, and my education, I started English on fourth grade with good morning sir. I never learned English before that. So I remember how hard was it to understand a poem, interpret a poem, and then understand those theoretical concepts that they have in the books, and even about process of creative writing. So I realize discussion like this will be very important for those students. But I'm not sure if like I'm reaching to a right person. But hopefully, because it's going global, so somebody might share it, and then uh, get our conversation to the right person who can listen it and get knowledge what they need for their
We
life.
need more enthusiasts like you, Nepali poetry, Nepali writing enthusiasts like you. We need more of them.
Right. Yeah.
Welcome to the tribe.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. So my last question, my last section is rapid fire round. We are going 10 minutes over. I'm trying to wrap up in 1 hour, because last time we were going 1.5 hours, and there was a feedback that try to make it within 1 hour. But that's totally fine, because poetry is not like science. So anyway, the last question is, I just wanted to be curious about your reading and writing habit. Can you please say, tell us like specific writing and reading habit that you have for every day, your everyday routine, how it goes?
Yeah, so I actually I don't read one book. I read several books at the same time. So I read like maybe three or four, like two novels, three novels, or uh, poetry books. I read all at once, like in one sitting. If I get a good poetry reading, I will know in couple of after a couple of poems, I'll know if I have to read the whole book or not.
Mhm.
But a novel, I'll keep reading like several novels at the same time. Like I'm three novels. Some I read in the morning, some in sleeping time, and so I try to finish them. So I'm constantly working, and also I come to this bookstore, my wife's bookstore. So I come and read all that available. And when I'm traveling, especially I read mostly in New York, and in when I'm traveling in the subways. Well, New York, you go from let's say if you go and you go anywhere. I stay in Bay Ridge, when I was in New York. So when you go from Bay Ridge to Union Square, it takes an hour. So
Right.
I keep my book with me, and you go back and you go to other place, and you go to another library. So and in London also, go from one Richmond to another place. You go to Charing Cross Road. I mean, so when I'm traveling on the flights, and I carry books with me all the time, 2 or 3 books, and I keep reading. So I think when I'm traveling, I'm reading more.
So you, when you
Especially
travel, you read, and then how about writing? Do you write every day, or how do you
I
write?
write every morning. Yeah,
Every morning.
that's the thing. I must write 3 or 4 hours every morning. I feel very upset in the all day. I'll be like I have some I'm not feeling well. So every
So
morning I just go out. I don't stay at home. I go out like in New York. I'll go out to Starbucks nearby. In Kathmandu now I'm here. I go to a nearby tea shop, some small tea shop, and right there, so nobody can disturb me. Nobody can find where I am, and switch my phone off, and or I don't answer. And or in like London, I'll go to where I'm staying, or any other Germany, or when I'm traveling, I find a nearby cafe early in the morning. Even if I have like in some places I have a whole house to myself, but still I can't stay in a house and write, because I
right,
think the sort of it has become part of my makeup. I must go out and write somewhere else, because
right.
once I go there, I have to sit on the table. I can do nothing but write. In home, I'm here, I'm making tea, I'm coffee, I'm going here and there, I'm reading this and that. So I need a kind of prescribed place. So I'm stuck there. I have to write, and that's all. And after a couple of hours, I wake up, I get up from there, and I do other things. So
Okay.
as Starbucks has been great with me, and the Nepalese tea shops have been great. And Delhi I have difficulty, because then in the mornings they sleep at night because it's hot there. So in the morning those shops are open. So I have difficulty in Delhi writing, because I have to go to coffee house, which is a little away from my place. So it's I have to whenever I go, first thing I see around a nice cafe or tea shop, or some place where I can go and write in the morning, or
How many?
library.
One question. How many times you revise your poetry? Like how many drafts usually?
Yeah. So I'll start a poem, kind of a flicker, and I'll keep the first draft. I'll keep working on it like maybe a week or two. So every morning I work and leave it, but I always keep the first draft. So when in the end, when I'm finished, I'll see if it's good. Then is it better than the first draft, or does it contain the innocence and the energy of the first draft? So I don't want to kill the energy of the first draft. So I have to, I believe the first draft, but then I have to work on it. But sometimes it can go away from the innocence of the first draft, or the emotional
So how many
depth.
drafts usually in your poetry, in average?
It depends. Like my poem Lost Horoscope, long poem, I maybe wrote 20 drafts, and
Oh
then but
wow.
I kept the first draft. I kept the first draft, and
Oh,
and I try to see all the drafts in light of this first
so
draft, and then
in that case,
finalize.
like I think I have not written any poetry because you said 20 draft for one poem, which is amazing. So you
I mean,
have
you keep working on it. You keep
yeah,
working every morning, and I
yeah,
keep writing, and then I work on next day, and then again, and so new things keep coming in, and
yeah,
new images, and new. It keeps expanding. It became a long poem. Last horoscope is a long poem,
right.
and like this Hunger Cannot poem also, like this poems. So or Annapurna poems. So you keep working, but then you should know where to stop. You know,
Yeah,
a good
thank you.
writer knows where to stop and where to wind up.
Exactly. That thank you so much, sir. This is a great inspiration, and this is a very good source of inspiration for new poets like me. Because honestly speaking, when I write one poem, and I have hardly revisited it 2 or 3 times, but you said 20 times. So I guess now I will be inspired to revisit the poem 20 times, and probably I will be sending that
And
poem to you, and then you can read that
yeah,
poem for me.
I got some, but I think it depends on some poems which are longer can take long, or some shorter poems. Like some poems you just don't want to make them, cut them down and just make 2 lines or 3 lines. So it depends. I mean, depend. But some poems can take up to 20. Some normally poem go 5 to 7 drafts. Normally,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
shorter poem.
Thank you. So the last round is the rapid fire round. In this round, I'll be asking you a question. You'll be just answering yes or no, or I don't know. No explanation. This is a new model I have developed. I have a question based on what critics say about you, or what rumors are there out there about your writing. So are you ready for that?
Sure.
Yeah. So I have 10 questions. Please answer yes or no or don't know. Yuyutsu's poems are overloaded with cultural images, making it difficult for some readers to engage emotionally and get connected.
Can you repeat?
Yuyutsu's poems are overloaded with cultural images, making it difficult for some readers to engage emotionally and get connected.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
I
Number
agree.
two, Sarma's poems are abstract and baffling.
No,
No. Number three, Sarma's Nepali English poems are unusual and forced.
yes. Unusual and forced?
Unusual and forced.
Forced.
Yes.
Maybe not. Maybe not forced, but
Okay.
unusual, yes.
Yuyutsu is a Nepali poet.
Yes, very much in spirit. Yes, I'm Himalayan poet. I always say, but yes,
Yeah. People can earn enough money by writing poetry.
yes,
Nobody can be taught to write a poem.
yes.
Sarma's themes are repetitive, which makes his poetry predictable.
Can you say it again?
Sarma's themes are repetitive, which makes his poetry predictable.
I won't say so. No, every book is a new book. Yeah,
Okay.
every theme is new. Every book has a new theme.
Sarma's poems are more performative.
Yes, certainly so.
Sarma's poems are silent about Nepali political transformation.
Not really. I'm much influenced by Rimal and Gopi, and of course,
And the last question is, poetry does not have any social role to play.
wrong.
No. Okay.
It has a role to play.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. It was nice talking
Pleasure.
to you today. And as you mentioned last time, probably we can transcribe it. But for now, I want to disconnect with DC Nepal live streaming, and then we can be talking on the background. And thank you for all the listeners, viewers, everybody for
Thank you
listening to
much.
us in this 1 hour 20-minute talk. Hopefully
Real
you
pleasure.
enjoyed it, and we'll be coming in our next series with a new poet. I'll be coming again, and please stay tuned with us. And is there anything that you want to mention before we disconnect, sir?
Yeah, I just want to say that thank you very much for all the support of all the Nepalese people, which are close to my heart, and my celebration of the Himalayas is a core thing that, and thanks to the people like you who are spreading the word about this, and also we are doing this festival, Himalayan Literature Festival workshop in next year into 2026 in first week of June. So those who want to come and join the workshop or join the festival, write to me and also contribute to Pratik if you have good poem or translation of Nepali writing or world over, whatever, from any country. We publish writing from all over the world, or you have a book review, especially like the book you have your poem in, with that Kavya. We love to if you and anybody wants to get a book reviewed, you should write to us. We love to, and if you want to review books for us, if you want to contribute or review books for us, please get in touch with me, and I look forward to expanding this circle of beautiful writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.